Well, welcome to another episode of Third Thursdays, the podcast designed to help you reflect, reset, and supercharge your monthly goals. I'm Branden Bodendorfer, and today we're going to talk about a number of conversations that I recently have people that are striving to implement meaningful change in their personal and professional lives. A common theme has emerged through many of these conversations over the last few weeks. Many of you have been telling me it's been challenging to streamline these changes into your daily activities. You've had a hard time implementing some of the goals and action steps that you need to achieve. And today's podcast is going to be talking about what it means to be an agent of change and what that role consists of and how you can better embrace that role so you can effectively carry out change in your organization. But before we dive into all that, I want to give you just a few updates on me and what's taking place here at the Key to Success family. Well, first and foremost, it is again Third Thursday, and if you haven't joined yet, and this is your first podcast, you can go back and check out our first podcast from last month. The idea with this podcast is really going to be an opportunity where I kind of just spitball. I throw out an idea or two, I chew on it, and deliver information to you guys about what we're experiencing, what our community is feeling. And we use the Third Thursday as a space in time where we kind of take a break, we pause, reflect on what's taken place in the last few weeks of the month and how can we make any last minute changes or pivots so that we can reach our goals before month end. So many of you have previously told me that by this time in the month you felt like you were not going to be successful or you felt like that you were running behind. And this is an opportunity for you to reprioritize and make the most out of the last week that is coming up in this month. That is what the Third Thursday is all about. Well, this month we've had a number of things take place here. Besides getting to meet with nearly hundreds of you and learn about some of the goals and aspirations that you have for 2025, we've also had the opportunity to start developing the 2026 planner. And a couple things that I'm really excited about this planning system for this next coming year is the Third Thursday. We're going to be introducing a widget that you're going to be able to actually pull into your 2025 planning tools. It's going to help you ask some questions about this time that we're experiencing together right now and help you kind of reset, pivot, reflect, and supercharge what it is you want to achieve before the month is out. But one thing that really resonated with me in this month's discussions with people was just embracing monthly planning. We have such a strong focus on our weekly priorities and what our daily key 3 is, but sometimes we kind of get lost in the breeze. In 1 week to the next week, we kind of forget what the overall objective is for the month. So for the professional, business, and executive users of our system, I want you to take a moment and just envision, what does the month of March look like for you? What are 3 big goals that you want to work towards? And I want you to go in your weekly planning tool and establish a timeline on how you are going to move through a series of action steps to achieve those big goals that you have for yourself in the coming month. And with each individual training call that I've done this month, we've had a lot of good traction on not only thinking about what we can achieve on a monthly basis, but how that can really roll out the vision that we have for the year. So please take a moment, and if you don't know what I'm talking about or how to utilize these tools, please take a moment, jump on our website and check out Series 1 training where we talk just about that, about how to maximize your weekly performance and build out your vision into your weekly and monthly planning. So today we're going to talk about an agent of change, and I want to tell you a little background, a little context on how this kind of all came together. And matter of fact, like much of my inspiration, it comes from the Lord, and this one came from a sermon that I was listening to about a year ago. And the sermon was about just being a change in other people's lives and a change in your own so that you could help embrace discipling, how you can bring the Lord into your family and into your house, and how you can explain that. And as I reflected on that over my own year, and I thought about how can I be a better advocate, how can I help coach and disciple others, how can I communicate, and just being able to overall listen, I started to really think about, like, as I start the new year, not only do I want to be an agent of change in Christ, but I also want to be an agent of change in my community, in my organization. and I want to be able to be someone that fosters growth and carries out goals and ideas. Now, I was going to put this video somewhere later in the series because I have about 4 or 5 videos kind of lined up for this podcast that we're going to talk about a number of different things. Next month's podcast I'm really excited for because I kind of wanted that to be this month's podcast. But through those conversations I was telling you earlier, I really felt people needed to hear this conversation. And I am not an expert in what it means to be an agent of change, so I have a handful of notes that I'm going to read through. But through this process, I really think by utilizing our planning system and our decision journal, you're going to feel and experience what it means to be a successful agent of change, and you're going to see the impact from it because it's really quite simple. Well, first off, what is an agent of change? An agent of change is someone who actively promotes and facilitates transformation. Whether in an organization or in their personal life, this role involves not only initiating change, but also guiding and supporting others, or yourself for that matter, through this transition. The key responsibilities include being a communicator, being able to clearly articulate the vision and benefits of the proposed change. Also includes being an advocate, being someone that is a champion for the change initiative, addressing concerns and reducing resistance through the process. You need to be a trainer, providing necessary resources and training equipment to help equip others with the skills that they're going to need to help carry out the change process. And last, you need to be a listener. It's so important to be able to gather feedback, make adjustments throughout the process, and change the strategy as you look at the change in itself. Now, whether you're new to this role or have an extensive experience in it, being able to embrace these responsibilities can help you significantly impact the level of success that you're going to drive home. And there's a number of tools that we have that are going to help you through this process. And there's a number of tools that we have to help you drive home this process. First and foremost, you have your Key to Success daily planner. This is going to help you establish those weekly goals, set daily key 3. But it's also a place where you can document in your team builder for executive users what your team has experienced. You can journal throughout the process, getting your thoughts and ideas down on paper. But one tool that I feel is really useful is the decision journal. This tool is designed to not only document, but be able to help you reflect on the decisions, help you aid in the clarity of what it is that you want to achieve, and it has a structural approach through the process. So let's talk about the decision journal. So when I developed the decision journal, it was after reading the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, and he talked about having a decision journal in his book and how utilizing it to make that 1% adjustment in their change each week was instrumental to his success and to success of anyone that goes through the process. Well, when I looked at that, there were some things I definitely wanted to be able to include in the decision journal of my own. First, I wanted a place where you could actually decompress your thoughts, be able to note your ideas without having to truly take action on them. Sometimes we just need a space that we can think about what it is that we're going to do and be able to put it in a place where we don't feel like there's a step that needs to be taken from it, but a place that we can really have a thought-provoking conversation with, a lot of times, just ourselves. And that's what this decision journal helps you kind of walk through this process of having these conversations with yourself and even with your peers for that matter in a way that helps you reach a goal of having a decision that is clear and provides the necessary need for the organization or for your own personal life. From there, it's always important to truly understand what is the decision and why is it meaningful? Why is it needed? And be able to understand the background. So many times as managers, as leaders, and even as parents, we like tell our kids, hey, you need to do this by then. But we're not really setting a boundary on why we need to do it in the first place. We haven't given them a reason to own it as well. If I tell my daughter or my son, hey, you need to do this because, and the reason or the background in which I tell them gives them a definition of why it's important, they're more likely to react. If I tell them, hey, go pick up your room, and I say, you need to do it now, they might not do it. But if I say, hey, grandparents are coming over, they're on their way here, they're going to be here in a half hour, and they want to check out your new bedspread they got you for a Christmas gift, guess what? There's a reason there, And I can almost assure you, my daughter is going to be like, yes, okay, I'll get it done. And she goes about cleaning her room. And I think that's important for us to understand when we're going through this role of being an agent of change, is being able to provide some of this context so that the people who are trying to lead through this process understands the background. It's also truly important to understand who this change is going to impact, mentally and physically. As there's many different generations in a lot of different organizations, we all experience change differently. We feel change differently. And being able to understand from each different generational gap, as well as from each individual's own space, how this is going to impact them is important for you to know as a leader, because it's going to help you establish a better process of advocating for the change. Now, who does it concern? Who are all the parties involved? And I think a lot of times people think that this is speaking from a point of authority. And to me, it's not always just about authority, but it's also understanding the background of why we need to do this. Is it affecting customers? Are they concerned? Is it something to do with other members of management or even your peers? And being able to understand who is concerned about it is important. Also, you need to know where we're at right now. What is the current state? And from here, why are we having this thought process to even go through the decision change in the first place? And we all have intuition. And what is our gut telling us? What is it that we in ourself is saying that needs to be done, and being able to document that. And what I find a lot of times, sometimes what our gut feeling is right on tack. But when I ask other people around the room what their gut feeling is, the collective group doesn't have the same instinctual vision until we have a conversation about who it impacts and who it concerns and why we're doing it. And as we have those conversations first, the reaction from the group is usually more similar than different. And lastly, as someone that's an agent of change, you have to understand your role. We talked about being a communicator, an advocate. We talked about the importance of being able to listen. And those are all things that are so important to that role as well. And you need to understand what your accountable actions are and what the favorable outcome is. What is it that you're truly trying to achieve from this change? Now, as you start to go through that process, you start to say, hey, that's great. That's going to give me some purpose. It's going to help me understand the need for the change. I'm understanding who is impacted, who are the stakeholders, and I'm helping to define the roles, anticipate the outcomes that might come from this change. This is going to help set you on a path to help you establish what those goals are and the steps you're going to take to help achieve them. But before we do all that, we also have to go through a process called a SWOT analysis. To me, this is a really valuable tool. Being able to go through a SWOT analysis is going to do a number of things. It's going to help you understand the internal and external components of the decision. What are some of the strengths? What are some of the weaknesses? Now, the opportunities and threats are external factors that could either help you capitalize or pose risk to making your decision, while strengths and opportunities are things that are internal. They're going to be things that are going to challenge you or create limitations, or they're going to be things that help contribute to the overall goal and give you an advantage in the process. By conducting a SWOT analysis, you are going to be able to develop a strategic plan that helps leverage these things, helps you address those strengths, seize the opportunity, and mitigate any risk in the process. And through that, you're going to be able to help facilitate the decision-making process and help you find the means of what the decision is. And that truly is the next thing that's presented on the decision journal is, what is the decision, what did you decide, and why did you make that decision? Now, as you go through this decision journal and start understanding not only the process, it's so important for you to be able to understand what your successes are. What is it that you need to win at? And what are you going to do to help measure that progress? And that's why we not only list out key goals and address those different challenges, but we also establish what our vitals are as what is our measurables. Now, in our decision journal, we talk about a number of different things. We talk about not only having a space to journal, we talk about those goals and how you can achieve them. We address all the challenges that we have. We identify the strengths that are going to help us leverage our success. And we're going to go through and mitigate the impacts of this process. But what I also think is so important about being an agent of change in your organization, in your personal life at home, is being able to take the time to reflect as you move through the decision process. So many leaders get caught up in making a decision. Then the decision is made, the decision gets out on the floor, and then weeks and months go by, and we look at the organization and there's performance deficiencies that are showing through. The goal that was end in mind is not being achieved. And what happens is because we made a decision and then we went on to making the next decision, and then we never truly went through the process of looking at how this decision was being carried out. And one thing that I felt was important, and I feel is important part of every decision journal, is being able to go through that process. After 1 week, ask yourself, hey, what did I expect? What actually happened? And be able to plot that out. After a month, again, ask the same question. What did you expect to achieve at this point, and what happened? Where are you at? And so forth. Do that again and again, each month, every 3 months, halfway through the year, and even a year later. Where are you in respect to where you thought you would be? What fruit were you able to harvest from this decision? Now, what's so important as you go through this process is to understand that even though you made a decision to make a change, that might lead to another change or another decision you have to make. And that's why we included in our decision journal the ability for you to make adaptations. Adaptations are small tweaks. Someone once told me that, hey, if I take a wrench and I make quarter turns each day and tighten that screw down, I'm going to have a better performance on what it is I want to achieve. And through these adaptations, I ask you, what triggered it? What caused you to make this adaptation, this slight pivot, this slight turn? And hopefully it helps you realign with what your goals were. So each week, each month, as you think about where you're at and what happened versus what you expected, hopefully you'll have clarity on if any adaptations should be made. And I always encourage everyone as they go through this process to write down their results, be able to indicate what the outcome was, and also ask yourself, what would you do if you could do it again? This is only going to give you the knowledge and strength the next time you go through a similar process. And as you go through decision making and you start to make more and more decisions, and you are a stronger agent of change, being able to reflect on your past experiences is going to build on your role. So why do this in the first place? Why not just jump right into change and take ownership of it and lead the charge? Be the trailblazer that you know you are. Well, the truth is, we need other people. You need a community around you. You need relationships. You need people beside you. And if you just blaze that trail alone, it's not only going to be lonely, it's going to be challenging. And if you can bring together and be an effective agent of change, you're going to be able to define that purpose. You're going to have people that are going to be engaged in the process. As a team, you're going to be able to develop the strategy that makes the most sense. And you can do this by utilizing the SWOT analysis. You're going to have an implementation process that's going to be thought out. And you're going to be able to monitor and adapt your plans as you move through the process. The documentation is just as important as the insights that you're receiving from the community around you. Now, as you sit here and you ask yourself, hey, I have some big goals that I want to achieve this year. In the last few weeks, I've not had that same drive that I did in the first few weeks of the month. That's okay, because what's great about utilizing our planning system or just being a human is that each and every day is the next day, is the first day in the rest of your life. So get back on the horse and let's do it again. One of the podcasts that I want to talk about later this year is about just winning. What does it mean to win? Now, I don't know many professional baseball teams that won the World Series on a perfect record, but I know a handful of teams that have made it to the playoffs with a winning record. Simply winning more games than losing is going to give you the advantage. There's going to be days that you feel lost and misplaced in your goals and aspirations, But the goal here is to keep striving to win. Get back up on the horse and let's do it again. Let's make tomorrow, next week, not only be the last week of the month, but the first week that we really start to see traction on what we want to achieve. And before we go, I have a number of questions I want you to be asking yourself to help you guide you through this process. What is the primary goal of this change? Who's going to be impacted, and how can you support them? What resources and strengths do you have that you can leverage yourself, your team, and your organization? What potential challenges might arise, and how can you prepare for them? And throughout the process, how will you measure your success? With that being said, thank you for tuning into this week's podcast, Third Thursdays. Take the next half hour, think about what it is that you want to achieve in the last week of this month. What is the priorities you want to focus on? And start to look at the month of March, the next month, and what are some of your goals and aspirations? What focus is going to be on the forefront? And what opportunities are on your table? I'm Branden Bodendorfer. Have a great one. Lord willing, I'll see you guys in the next one.